Thank you. Just in time. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Public Service Commission meeting of October the 6th, 2016. I do believe that we have someone watching us from Russia with love. So if you all want to wave to Dallas, we can. We have minutes from September the 20th, 2016. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Madam Chair, I have one proposed revision to the minutes on page 7 from my packet. If we start on page 6, it points out that the sentence "remove the Delmarva service territory restriction and encumbered for the gas infrastructure enhancements." I think we should include here, but within the state of Delaware.
I'm sorry, I can't find the
Okay,
paragraph.
so the sentence is starting. Let's go on page 6.
Yep.
A motion was made by Commissioner Conaway and seconded by Commissioner Correa to approve $6 million to DOE Economic Development, semicolon. Remove the Delmarva service territory restriction. I'm proposing that we insert, but within the state of Delaware, because if this gas infrastructure investment is made and we've removed the territory restriction, then it may be possible this investment is taking place outside the state of Delaware. And I think our intention was to keep it in the state of Delaware.
I would agree with that.
So if that's the consensus of the commission, I would simply submit the revised statement, but within the state of Delaware.
You've made that motion. Is there
Yes.
a second?
A second. I second that.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Commissioner Gray, would you like to talk
Yes.
to that? Speak
Madam
to that?
Chair, I'd like to request that we remove item 3, the joint application of call catchers, from the consent agenda and address it in our regular agenda.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say, I'm sorry, any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll put that at the end of the agenda, if that's all right, Commissioner.
That's fine.
The
Thank you.
first item on the agenda, Brenda Mayrack, please.
Are we on the consent agenda? The rest of the
Regular
consent
agenda.
Have you approved the
The
consent
rest of the
agenda?
consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that the commission approve the remaining items on the consent agenda as presented.
And I second that.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're on the regular agenda.
Yes, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners, Brenda Mayrack standing in for Jim Geddes, representing staff on this docket, which is 14-193. Basically, staff would ask that the commission continue consideration of all the items before it until the meeting on October 18th. That's the next meeting. I believe all the other parties are in agreement with that request for consideration, but if they are not, they may certainly speak up. I'm kind of stepping in at the last minute on this one. So basically, staff would ask that the commission stay consideration of all the items in 14-193 until the October 18th meeting.
All right, Mr. Goodman?
Delmarva would absolutely agree with that.
Sayuri?
The DPI does not oppose.
Okay. May we have a motion to that effect, please?
Motion that we consider matter 1, docket 14-193 on October 18th.
Second.
All right, any questions on the motion?
I have one request, Madam Chair. On that date for the next hearing, I may travel away from the state, and I would request that we put this item at the top of the agenda such that I can be here because I have some inquiries related to it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're on to item number 2 in the matter of the application of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation for approval of a change in its gas sales service rates to be effective November 1st, 2015. I believe we have Mr. O'Brien from Chesapeake.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation. So what you have before you is proposed order number 8954. This is essentially a follow-up to the order that this commission signed about 8 weeks ago, where you approved a settlement agreement between commission staff, the public advocate, and the company regarding its GSR rates. And within that settlement agreement, as you recall, there was also a term that called for the company to meet and confer with the public advocate and commission staff regarding the possibility of engaging its marketing affiliate to perform its asset management services for it rather than a third party. Its marketing affiliate's name is Peninsula Energy Services Company, or PESCO. Prior to this settlement agreement, there was an agreement whereby the company would issue an RFP when the existing asset management agreement ended. It ends March 31st, 2017. But for several years now, Commission staff and the DPA has been encouraging the company to evaluate bringing its asset management service in-house. And just briefly what an asset manager does, if you look at footnote 1 in the proposed order, it does briefly explain it. But what it does is the local distribution company, which I'll call Delaware Division, that's a division of Chesapeake, they engage in transportation contracts with the interstate pipelines in order to provide its customers with supply from those interstate pipelines that it then delivers to its system and then out to the customers. Those assets are mainly utilized, as you can imagine, in the winter during the heating season. So there's a lot of time when those assets are not being fully utilized by Delaware Division. So what Chesapeake does, and most other LDCs, is that they engage an asset manager to, one, provide the supply to the LDC, and two, utilize those assets in the market when it's not needed to provide supply for the LDC. So one thing that's a little unusual, they are providing a service to Chesapeake, but they are the ones that are paying Chesapeake for the privilege of providing that service. When I say privilege, I mean they provide the service, but then they get to monetize those assets when they're underutilized by the LDC. And so what the company has done since open access, since FERC ordered open access, was engage a third-party asset manager through an RFP process. Now, why would staff and DPA be encouraging the company to bring that in-house? Well, because there is an upside to these contracts that right now these third parties are realizing entirely on their own. And if they could bring that in-house, then the GSR ratepayers could benefit from that upside to these assets. And up to now, the RFPs have produced asset management agreements that only included a flat fee. So anything that asset manager was able to earn above that flat fee went to the third party. So that's the reason why they were encouraging us to bring it in-house, was to include a sharing mechanism above that flat fee, so that if it turned out that the assets became more and more valuable during the contract term, the GSR ratepayers would see some of that benefit. So that's where we are today. The order that approved the settlement agreement did direct us to meet and confer. We did on several occasions, in person and by teleconference. Staff and DPA served discovery on the company and PESCO. We met to discuss the discovery responses. We ended up actually negotiating the terms of an AMA that included this sharing mechanism that I'm talking about. And we did come to an agreement on something that would be beneficial to the GSR ratepayers. So if you've got a minute, I will briefly go through each of these ordering paragraphs just to explain why each one is needed. So the first ordering paragraph simply allows for the company to enter into this agreement irrespective of any prior settlement agreements that we had that may have called for an RFP process. Because what we're doing now is going down a new course of action. The second paragraph waives the asymmetrical pricing rule. That's the rule that is used on a day-to-day basis whenever there are transactions between the company and one of its affiliates. It calls for the better of market pricing or cost so that the LDC's customers are protected from any inappropriate self-dealing. It's a quick and easy way to ensure that the LDC is getting the better of any deal they have with an affiliate. Once you take a transaction and bring it to the commission or staff and DPA for its own separate scrutiny, then that scrutiny is what protects the ratepayers from any undue self-dealing. So that's what we have here. We have the staff and the DPA scrutinizing the underlying agreement along with their outside expert on gas supply. The third paragraph lays out some of the terms that staff and DPA required to be in the asset management agreement. And essentially this first one here is extremely important, and another reason why it helps to have an affiliated company as your asset manager. It requires audit rights. It requires that PESCO open its books and records to DPA and staff and the commission essentially on 5 days' notice and throughout the term of this contract in order to ensure that that sharing mechanism is being properly applied and that the GSR ratepayers are getting the full benefit of the bargain. The fourth paragraph simply states that if there is a dispute during this term, certainly if any of the parties don't like the way the contract went at the end of the term, then anybody can walk away and we move in a new course of action then. But during the term, if there's a dispute that arises, the parties wanted to ensure that PESCO would not stand back and say, the commission doesn't have jurisdiction over us. We're not coming in here to resolve this dispute. So this is essentially PESCO agreeing that for disputes under this contract, they'll submit to the jurisdiction of the commission. And then the fifth paragraph just provides another term that was negotiated with the parties, and that's the length of the contract being 3 years. And then it states at the end of those 3 years, the parties can all get together again and see if they want to redo it. And essentially that's what we have. I'm here for any questions, but we certainly do request your approval of this proposed order. And by the way, again, we thank the public advocate, Ms. Iori, Brenda Mayrack, Jason Smith, everybody else that helped on this docket, and of course their outside consultant, Jerry Mierzwa, who was intimately involved.
Does anybody have questions of Mr. O'Brien?
Mr. O'Brien, the audit information that the DPA or staff may find if they came to the offices, is most of that information going to be incorporated into the quarterly reports that are issued 90 days after the quarter end?
That's certainly the expectation, because those quarterly reports are going to be the backup for what the shared payment will be. And so essentially that is their interest, is making sure that all the revenues that are being derived from Delaware Division's assets are being properly accounted for so that the sharing mechanism can optimally benefit the GSRs.
So you don't really, you don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of site visits to do more research on this. It will be incorporated in those reports?
That's really a question for staff or DPA. They certainly have the ability to come in at any time. We would hope that our quarterly reports are well supported enough to satisfy them, but we have no problem opening the books either.
Thank you.
Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I don't have much to add to what Mr. O'Brien said. He gave a very thorough explanation of what led us to this point and the terms that we negotiated. In response to your question, Commissioner Draxler, hopefully, the quarterly reports will give us the information we need. But one thing that we negotiated for and got was that we would not have to go down to Florida, which is where PESCO is located, to get the information, that it would be produced to us in Delaware. So, because I was concerned that with our limited budgets, if we did have to go down there, we didn't want to be footing the bill for it. So with that, unless you have any other questions of the public advocate does urge your favorable consideration of this proposed order.
Ms. Mayrack?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. Yes, as both Ms. Iori and Mr. O'Brien have already stated, staff would ask that the Commission adopt Order Number 8954 in docket 15-1362. Staff was engaged in a process to evaluate the various options for Chesapeake's asset manager, and given the costs of Chesapeake establishing its own in-house management versus an RFP process for a third-party asset manager, we felt that this was the best option in the public interest, particularly because of these audit rights. In an RFP process, it's unlikely that the winner of that bidding process would be open to audit rights for the staff and commission. So that's particularly important, so that in 3 years and during the course of the next 3 years, staff and the DPA can audit the fees and determine whether this is the best deal for the ratepayers. But just in terms of the costs to Chesapeake, the audit rights, and the favorable financial terms for our ratepayers, staff views this as in the public interest and urges the Commission to adopt this order. Jason Smith is available if there are any questions from the Commissioners.
Commissioners, questions?
One question, Madam Chair. Is there any risk that the internal asset management would push up costs for GSR ratepayers?
Commissioner Gray, those terms are laid out in the agreement. There are no costs that PESCO incurs will be passed on to the GSR ratepayers. The entire arrangement is that PESCO makes a fixed fee on a monthly basis to the company, and then on an annual basis, this shared portion of the fee. So that's all set, and the costs, the company's costs will not be going up any from what it is now, because it already has an outside asset manager performing this function. So the company's costs won't change under this new arrangement.
Is that a no?
Correct. That is no.
Okay, then may I have a motion on order number 8954, please?
Motion that we adopt order number 8954 as presented.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 3 on the regular agenda is in the matter of the review of customer choice in the state of Delaware. Ms. Mayrack, do you want to lead on that?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. What the Commission has before, again, I am representing staff and standing in for Mr. Geddes on this docket. This is docket number 15-1693, order number 8948. This order simply memorializes the decision that the Commission made orally at the September 6th meeting, actually in the context of Regulation Docket 49. And the decision of the Commission taken by vote at that meeting was to continue any further action in this docket, 15-1693, until action had been taken in Regulation Docket 49. And this order simply memorializes that decision, and staff would urge its adoption by the Commission.
Okay, questions of Ms. Mayrack? Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. The Public Advocate also urges the Commission to adopt the proposed order. This, as you know from the argument that you heard on September 6th, it really does make a lot more sense for us to have rules in place that govern third-party suppliers before going into how can we better expand opportunities for choice.
Questions of Ms. Iori? Mr. Green?
Brian Green for the Retail Energy Supply Association. Good afternoon. RISA has no objection to the proposed order. It's really an offshoot of a joint submission by DPA and RISA to suspend the procedural schedule and the 15-1693 proceeding until we can finalize the Rule 49 rules.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. Green?
No
All right.
questions, Madam Chair. I move that the Commission adopt order number 8948 as submitted.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any, no opposed, okay. Item number 4 on the agenda is in the matter of the petition of Direct Energy Services, LLC, to request the Public Service Commission to issue, on an expedited basis, an order directing Delmarva Power and Light Company to distribute an educational bill insert regarding the options available under the contract awarded by the state of Delaware. And again, I believe we start with Ms. Mayrack.
I'd be happy to. Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners, Brenda Mayrack on behalf of the Commission staff. What you have before you today is order number 8947 in docket 16-0744. Just to briefly review what has occurred in this docket, Direct Energy Services, LLC had brought a petition to the Commission asking for an order that would direct Delmarva Power and Light to distribute a bill insert concerning electric supplier choice, and in particular noting that Direct Energy was contracted with the state as, to get the wording right, as exclusively contracted by the state of Delaware. The parties were pretty far apart in their positions, but I would, recognize that everyone really worked together over the last couple of weeks in coming up with an agreed-upon form of order that I believe all the parties are in agreement with, that we can present to the Commission that would act as a settlement in this docket. I think generally when you're in settlement negotiations, the sign of a good settlement is that everyone walks away a little bit unhappy, and that may be the case here. But the parties had come to the Commission at the last meeting and asked for an additional 2 weeks because we were very close to a settlement at that point, and we've used that time to bring a final order before the Commission. Basically what this order will do, and I'll walk through the ordering paragraphs, it would deny the relief that was sought by Direct Energy in its petition. However, the Commission would direct Delmarva, with input from all the parties, to develop a bill insert that would address customer choice issues generally, and that would be included in Delmarva's residential and small commercial bills. The bill insert would include general information, and it would also include a list of those active suppliers in alphabetical order who meet particular criteria with contact information for those suppliers. The electric suppliers participating in that would pay for their incremental cost of that bill insert. Furthermore, staff would be directed to develop a website on the Public Service Commission's website that would also list those active suppliers, including name, telephone number, and a link to their website. And there's a process that even if a supplier is not designated as active as of today, that if they become a, quote, active supplier in the future, they will be able to ask the Commission for inclusion on that list. So what the Commission has now is a list of over 100 certificated suppliers. So any supplier who comes and gets a certificate from this Commission is listed, but they are not all actively offering a supply offer in Delaware. So what this will do is create another website that highlights those 20 active suppliers, making it easier for consumers to figure out who's actively offering a choice here in Delaware. There will be a footnote on the page, which is described in detail in the order, that will denote Direct Energy's status as the supplier exclusively contracted by the state of Delaware. And staff has agreed also to look into ways that that website might be improved in the future. The goal here is to have the bill insert in the December bill cycle. Delmarva has agreed to use best efforts to get it done by then. Of course, others are involved. And there will also, Delmarva has made it known that the customer list is available to suppliers such as Direct Energy on a secure website, and Direct Energy will be able to have access to that list if it has not already. So that's how the parties have come to a resolution of this docket. It's not what everyone wanted, but I think, again, everyone has walked away with this as a solution that we can present to the Commission, and staff would ask that the Commission adopt order number 8947. Connie McDowell is available if there are any additional questions from staff.
Commissioners, do you have questions? Okay, there being none, let's see. Mr. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Commissioner. Okay.
Oh, I have a question about the website, the page. Is the page just going to simply be a list of name, number, web address, those links? Or is there going to be an explanation as to why this page is showing those names? Is there going to be some little blurb at the top or something?
You want to say?
Yes, we plan to say what it is, that these are a list of active suppliers, and the link will actually go to their page for the offers.
Right. Okay, thanks.
And could I maybe add a little more to that, or would you like me to wait to?
No, please do.
Okay. But active supplier, I mean, first of all, Ms. Mayor did a great job not only explaining it, but throughout this process. And I think we've all told her that, and we appreciate it. But active supplier means it has a definition that might be a little different than what you would just think normally. And the challenge for customers right now is if you go on our website, for instance, we send you to a list of, we talk about what choice is, and there's education on it. And then you can link to the list of certified or otherwise licensed suppliers whom you have a certified, approved, licensed, whatever you call it certified, to provide choice services in Delaware. And I think there's 130 or something like that, right, Brenda? Mm-hmm. But only about 20 are active. There are probably 30 or 40 that have a customer or two. So we define active as you got to be, we're saying at least 10 customers, and you have to be ready now. A customer calls to say, yes, sign you up, you get choice. So, and so that list is what's going to be on our bill insert, and just identifying as you asked, right? No preferences on there. It's just going to be on the bill insert. It's just going to say name, telephone number, website. So customers now, okay, well, these are the ones I can actually call, and I don't have to wade through 100. So that's how we're doing it. And then staff is also adding on a link right to the website, which I think is great. So if I want to see, there's Direct Energy. I've heard about them. I click right on there, boing, and here comes it up. And it just makes it easier for customers. So I think the active thing is important. Just make that clear. It's not everyone who's doing anything. It's just the ones that are out there and customers can really turn to. Trying to make choice easier.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a few. So it seems for me that the website from the Public Service Commission that relates this information to the user is important. And I'm just curious to know what level or degree of coordination or synchronization there might be between the PSC list and links and the Delmarva links and lists. Well, because a customer might get somewhat confused if they find 130 on the PSC and they find 30 on Delmarva in some way.
From Delmarva's perspective, or do you?
Well, I think right now we have a list of certified suppliers, and that list will remain. This will be a new website that then lists those 20 or so active suppliers.
A new page
Now,
on the website.
A new page, and it will explain why they are listed there, and the link will go directly to whatever link that supplier directs us to. So if they have a Delaware specific page, that's the link. We'll do what they ask. So as of the bill insert, those lists will be identical, the website and the bill insert.
Pretty much.
But basically, to give any suppliers that might become active in the future, we wouldn't want to say, well, just because you didn't make the cutoff for the December 2016 bill insert, now you can never be listed on the active website. We basically have a provision that if a supplier qualifies as an active supplier later, we'll add them to the website. So I guess there is a possibility that after December of 2016, the website and what was the bill insert will diverge. But that's only to keep that list current, because that will be then the resource for Delaware consumers.
Okay,
of
so
choice.
will the PSC website be launched by the time customers receive the Delmarva December bill?
We
Yes.
plan on it.
It's just a new page on the website, Your Honor. It's not like you have to go through a giant creation. It's sort of like when you click on the agenda, and each week an agenda pops up with links, somewhat similar to that. Not the creation of a website.
Okay, and so at least what you put in the bill insert will not guide a customer to something that doesn't yet exist.
That's right. And
Okay,
that's
that's my concern.
And that's the whole idea of the bill insert, right? We wanted to guide them to suppliers who you can actually get service from, and staff's just going to keep that more current, and just something that I thought you might have been thinking about too. Well, why do you still need the list of 140? Well, let's say Mayrac Energy comes along and they're certified, but they've never sold, so they're not active. But next month, they mail to customers. Well, they're not going to be on the short list of actives yet. Well, they could be on certain circumstances. But I think it's important for a customer to say, "Geez, I've never heard of that. I got to see if this is legitimate." They can still go on and see if they're licensed. Say, "Oh, they're licensed. Okay, or certified." So I think you still need both.
Right. Well, and there's also the idea that when others, I know at least for this commission's process, when we get an application from a new supplier, we check to see if they're certified in other states. So maintaining that longer list of everyone certified is still important. There's also industrial and large commercial customers as well who might not need the trappings of a consumer choice website, but still want to see if this supplier is certified in Delaware. So there'll be two different pages. And I think staff really tried. I mean, one, we have no funding to create a consumer choice website on the same level that other states might have. But this is a small step in the right direction to make this information more accessible to consumers. And as the order states, we plan to keep talking with industry and with RISA about ways that we might work with industry to expand what that looks like. Again, while not committing the staff to any unfunded work in perpetuity.
And now I have a question. How often will that list be updated so that it goes from the big list to the smaller list or vice versa?
Well, the link on our website will be however fast the electric supplier updates their information, their offerings. But if we get, we only believe that there will be, electric supplier to come along and say, we now qualify for the list, and we'll put them on immediately.
Okay.
But there'll be an initial push to get those first 20 on, and then it should taper off considerably after that.
And that'll be the challenge, to get it done in time to be in the December bills, because these are professionally printed, and I should have a deadline, hopefully by the end of today, from our printer as to when they would have to have a completely finished mock ready to go. And I think the challenge is going to be, and we've already drafted a form, but we got to get that form out to each of these actives, and we have records of who's active. They've got to execute it, get it back to us, and there'll be some. We've had a bill insert for years, And in fact, it was developed back at the beginning of Choice. It's been tweaked here and there. It's been sent to customers. Now it resides on our website. And if a customer contacts us and say, I just like a little more information about Choice, they have a brochure. But it's kind of based on that. We've made it, redone it. It's going to be distributed soon to the parties in here for their comments, suggestions. So we're going to try and get that done quickly. So it's still a little push to get it done by December, but we're all going to use our best good faith efforts to do that. And if not, it'll be the next month.
Okay.
It's kind of up to the printers and how quickly we can get things done. But we're ready to, as soon as you approve this lovely order, we're ready to shoot our part out to everyone and let them get started.
Mr. Clearfield.
Well, thank you, Madam Acting Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Dan Clearfield. I'm representing Direct Energy, and we too want to thank the staff and the other parties for working with us. The program that the state of Delaware has embarked on is really innovative and really, I think, one of a kind. I represent suppliers in states all up and down the East Coast, and I've never seen anything like this. I think it's a real opportunity to sort of energize Choice and to get the word out.
Pun intended on that?
Yeah, pun intended. But as Ms. Mayrock said, a good settlement is when everybody, at least, a little bit unhappy. And this isn't exactly what we anticipated, but it's a step. These are steps in the right direction, and I think they're significant. I think any time that customers learn about Choice and learn about the fact that there are opportunities out there, that's a good thing for the market. And Direct Energy, for one, is very happy to have that information go out for all the suppliers because, frankly, we think that an objective view will always mean that you'll choose our products. The products that are being offered under this endorsement from the state are just fantastic, and I urge you all to take a look at them because you can save a lot of money, and they really are innovative in themselves. So we're supportive of the order because we wanted to move forward with this, and months and months of litigation were not going to help anybody. The real goal is to try to energize Choice and get those numbers up. I would also mention that Pennsylvania has a great website that's been mentioned many, many times. Direct Energy is committed to working with the staff to try to help and bring information, from the Pennsylvania or other commissions to see how that's done, and also, talk about whether there's resources that can be brought to bear to help that process. Because based on anecdotal information, the Pennsylvania website, the Power Choice website, has been tremendously helpful in achieving the levels of shopping. In PPL service territory, 50% of the residential customers are using competitive suppliers and saving money. So that's a great goal, to aspire to. So we again thank everyone for their work on this.
And we'll be addressing that in docket 15-1693, as you see in the order. That's about improving Choice, bringing more suppliers in, making it easier for customers, just making it better for customers. And so I'm sure there'll be some discussion about how can we improve a website but not be an unfunded mandate or whatever Brenda has made clear she doesn't want, and has done a very good job.
I apologize for taking so much time, but I just want to make that the one really important thing from our standpoint was that the website was going to have a footnote next to the Direct Energy name so that it indicates that it is the supplier exclusively contracted with the state of Delaware. I think there's actually should say to provide beneficial offers to residential and commercial customers, as the staff initially did in one of its orders. But that's really important because it sends the message to customers that this offer has been endorsed by the state, which I think is really important. That's not to say the other offers aren't reasonable, but that's really important.
I like Mayrock Energy's offer.
Mayrock Energy.
Any questions of Mr. Clearfield? All right. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Your Honor. Brian Green for the Retail Energy Supply Association. We support the settlement. I join in the chorus of thank yous to all the parties for the collaborative efforts the last couple weeks to arrive at the proposed order. It was very important, Teresa, with respect to the bill insert, that the insert list all of the suppliers alphabetically. It's important to get information about Choice to the customers, but without listing what the customer's options are, then you're not really painting the full picture for customers. It'd be like in the early days of cell phone service, sending you an email or an insert that said, you can get your cell phone from somewhere else, but you don't know where that somewhere else is. So it was important to RISA in the settlement that the insert include a list of all the active suppliers and that everyone be treated equally, alphabetically, and no footnotes, no taglines, no logos, and so forth. Second, there was a lot of discussion in the last couple of weeks about the website and what it might look like, and we appreciate staff's concerns that about the budgetary issues and about the ongoing maintenance that staff may or may not have to put into it, and they're concerned about that. And RISA's goal is to try to minimize all that, but at the same time provide a user-friendly, helpful website to customers. There are numerous states out there that have shopping websites that are everything from just a PDF that is updated, on a periodic basis, maybe monthly, maybe a little more than that, depends on the state, all the way up to really what Mr. Clearfield mentioned, Pennsylvania, which is widely considered the gold standard of websites. So what RISA's already started doing is we've talked already with members from the staff from the D.C. Commission, the District of Columbia, where they have a PDF. We've talked with staff from the Massachusetts Commission, where they have an interim site that is right now changing to a much more robust site. I had a conversation with them just the other day about what they do. It's a table. So customers, and the important part about what D.C. does and what Massachusetts is doing and all the other states is that customers go to a site and it's a table. It is a true shopping comparison table. So they can see, ABC Energy, I shouldn't say that because that's an actual name of a company, isn't it? So that, supplier 1 has this offer, supplier 2 has that offer, and it's got this component of renewable, and it's this duration, and it's of contract, and it's this price. This is what 1,000 kilowatt hours per month would cost you. So there's that kind of information, and they just read across the table and see that, as opposed to having what we're talking about here is click on this link, and then click on this link, and then click on this link, and do your own comparisons. So again, I agree with Ms. Mayrak that that's a small step, and it's really helpful to customers. But at the same time, it's not very user-friendly, so it's debatable as to just how helpful it might be. So we're looking, in one of the important provisions, and I say all that as background for what I'm about to say, which is one of the important provisions of the settlement is that we'll continue to discuss improvements to the website in the choice docket in 15-1693. We want to continue to get assistance and guidance from other states and see how they're doing it and what kind of resources they're dedicating to it, and see how to bring a user-friendly site that doesn't have a lot of upfront cost to it, that minimizes staff's ongoing maintenance of the site. So those are the two areas. The bill insert was very important, and then this provision that we'll get something up, and then we'll keep looking at it. We're very important provisions to RISA, and we support the order.
Thank you. Ms. Irie?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners, bringing up the rear as usual. I'm not going to belabor the point. Thanks to everybody. Everybody worked pretty well together. It was important to the DPA that neither the website nor the bill insert be seen as any kind of advertising for Direct Energy. Dan and I had some email wars about it during this.
Discussions, I think.
I call them wars.
I don't recall that.
And so, as Ms. Mayrak said, a good settlement is when everybody's somewhat unhappy. We weren't crazy about the footnote, but we did give in on that so that we could just get it done and get it going. So we urge your favorable consideration of the proposed order.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Ms. Irie? Oh,
I would just like to make a statement, if I could, on behalf of the commission itself.
sure.
These companies and these attorneys really are to be commended. I was not part of the negotiations, but I got to kind of view it from the side. And, we have 5 different parties. Sometimes some of them agree with one another, sometimes they don't. But you basically have 5 different points of view. At one point, some were diametrically opposed, with one party saying we absolutely have to have this in the agreement, another party saying we'll never have that in the agreement. And somehow they kept working on this, especially Ms. Mayrak was very helpful with that. And they kept going and kept going and kept going, and they reached an agreement. And to me, that's tremendous lawyering to get that done. It really does show that. Sometimes avoiding litigation can be the very best result for everybody involved, and they really did that, and I think they're to be commended for that.
Thank you very much. All right, any other comments? Motion?
Well, following up that commentary, I just want to say I'm thankful as a commissioner that we do not have to broker what the insert content looks like or the design. Thank you. And Madam Chair, I will submit and recommend that the commission adopt order number 8947 as submitted.
I second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for making Delaware number one again. Item number 5, in the matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for an annual update in the gas environmental surcharge rider rate. This order will open the docket. I believe we have Ms. Scott for Delmarva.
Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners, as you indicated, this order would open the docket in connection with Delmarva's annual environmental surcharge rider rate filing. It would approve the rates to go into effect November 1st, subject to refund. It sets a date for the evidentiary hearing in this matter, as well as a date for the receipt of comments and for intervention. And we would ask that the Commission approve this order.
Okay, Mr. Willard.
As Ms. Scott said, we agree this order should be approved. The staff is in agreement with it, and we urge the Commission to adopt the order.
Thank you. Ms. Iori.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. DPA has nothing to add.
Okay. Any questions from the Commissioners? All right, we have before us order number 8953.
Motion that we adopt order number 8953 as presented.
One minor modification. In my order, there's a small spelling error behind Delmarva Power, but otherwise, I second the motion to adopt the order 8953.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. All right, item number 6. I think that's where we are. In the matter of the provision of standard offer supply to retail consumers in the service territory of Delmarva Power and Light Company. We start again with Ms. Scott.
Thank you again, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. The purpose of this order is to approve some very minor changes to the SOS procurement documents that would go out to auction later this year, starting later this year and into early next year. As I said, very minor changes to the RFP to change some of the dates associated with deadlines for different aspects of the process, including a minor change to a rate as required by PJM. The documents have been reviewed by the stakeholders. We had a stakeholder review process, and there were no additional comments or concerns about the proposed changes. So I ask that this order be adopted.
Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. The DPA does not oppose this order.
All right. And Mr.
On
Willard?
behalf of staff, the staff is in agreement that the order should be approved, and we request that the Commission do so.
Any questions from the Commissioners? Motion, please.
Motion that we adopt order number 8946 as presented.
Second. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very, very much. And now we're up to item number 7, and it's Chesapeake again. In the matter of the activities of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation pursuant to the energy efficiency and fuel switching provisions of the 2014 amendments to the Delaware Energy Act. And this again opens the docket, I believe. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation. What you have before you is proposed order number 8950. This order is nearly identical to one that this commission approved, I believe it was about 6 weeks ago, for Delmarva Power. What it does is it permits Chesapeake to establish a regulatory asset, to defer accounting on certain costs that it will incur in conjunction with its activities under the 2014 amendments to the Delaware Energy Act. And as the order explains, those amendments are what set up the Energy Efficiency Advisory Committee and required affected energy providers to design and implement cost-effective energy efficiency programs. So the statute essentially set up a two-part mechanism for cost recovery, one having to do with contemporaneous recovery with the operation of the programs, and then one which calls for deferred accounting for those costs prior to the programs going live. So this essentially just follows the statute and allows the company to establish that. And as I said, both Delmarva Power and Chesapeake are affected energy providers under the statute. And this simply does what you did 6 weeks ago for Delmarva Power, and it does provide some parameters around that regulatory asset in the ordering paragraphs, which Chesapeake, of course, will be following.
Thank you. Ms. Irie?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. It was important from the DPA's perspective that this order be identical to Delmarva's, and so we reviewed it in that context. The DPA is satisfied that the order is no different for Chesapeake than it was for Delmarva, and we urge its approval.
Thank you. Mr. Willard?
Yes, when this happened with Delmarva, there was some controversy at first, and then it was finally worked out. And this basically does exactly what happened with that case, and the staff recommends approval as well.
Thank you. Questions? All right. You have before you order number 8950.
Madam Chair, I move the Commission adopt order number 8950 as submitted.
I second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we have item number 3 from the consent agenda. Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we get started on this, is there anyone present representing Freedom Voice or GoDaddy in this proceeding that's in the room? No? Okay. So we have staff, Mr. Bowman. Thank you. I read through this, and I recall in September the Commission, I think we gave a license to Freedom Voice. Is that correct? And there were some questions related to the takeover, the immediate, if you will, takeover by GoDaddy of that entity. So what do we know about the quality of services provided by GoDaddy?
As of now, there's multiple. If you look at the application and the memo, there's multiple GoDaddy entities, but the one that's in this one that's taking over the GoDaddy operating company is their financial capabilities and whatnot are included in the application, and they were reviewed. And then there's also one currently being applying for a CPC on one of the other subsidiaries of GoDaddy operating company. And at the current time, there seems to be no issues with their financial feasibility either, or their management structures. One of the requirements that we have is that they provide the commission staff with detailed management experience, biographies, resumes, if you want to call it that, that we look at before we make any recommendations. So all of that has been taken into consideration for both the Freedom Voice entity and the GoDaddy entity.
I guess maybe I'll express my concerns up front, and I have 3 or 4 other questions related to it. I don't know that there has been any opportunity for Freedom Voice to establish a quality of service in the public interest for the license that they hold. And the fact that the takeover is occurring so quickly behind the commission's decision in September, it leads me to ask some questions about the entity that's doing the takeover. So do we have certificates of good standing for GoDaddy from our state secretary or from the state where they're registered?
For Delaware, no. Well, let me
I
back
think
up.
they're registered in Delaware. So
Yes. The GoDaddy operating company, I cannot say for sure. The ultimate parent company, the subsidiary level ones that are authorized in Delaware do, and the one that is currently currently has the application for authorization has provided us with one. The other thing that I will say is to what you were just mentioning about the lack of time for between the Freedom Voice CPCN application and this one. The Freedom Voice does offer services in, I don't think it's all 50, but it's a majority of the states. This was just number 42 or 43 or something. So they have a history of, service in other territories and jurisdictions, and with multiple telecommunication services, not just what they applied for here, but inter-exchange and
Right.
local exchange and everything.
So for me, the issue here is not so much Freedom Voice. The issue here is the entity that's taking over Freedom Voice and what that might do in the way of the public interest for services provided in Delaware. And so which states have already approved, do you know which states have already approved this GoDaddy acquisition?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't know how many other states have the same approval process we do with the 30-day limit, unless we want to put in a motion to have further discussions or whatever.
Okay, let me just share one last thing, and I'll yield to my other commissioners before we make a determination. But I went online under Better Business Bureau, and I see some very disturbing signals with respect to the entity that's doing the takeover here. And so I'm very worried that we approve this, and then we have services provided in Delaware that turn out to be poor quality services moving through the acquired entity. So I'm really concerned about this particular transaction, this particular acquisition from the particular company that's doing the buyout. And it would help me to understand by benchmarking what's happening in other states, what happened with the woeful statistics on Better Business's website. Has FCC acquired any evidence information that would cause us to take pause in this matter?
The other thing is all of the jurisdictions that have these, they offer services and have to approve as well before it's finalized. And that's one of the steps that we make them do, is provide us with verification that it's been approved in all jurisdictions. And the other thing is although Freedom Voice is going to be taken over by the GoDaddy operating company, they do specify that Freedom Voice, the current management of Freedom Voice is going to continue to be the ones responsible for the operation of the business, and that it's basically a pretty move over, and that there's none of the services or any of that is going to be changed or altered or impaired, however you want to refer to it.
Okay. All right. I don't have at the moment any further questions, but I do still I have some concerns and unanswered questions with respect to getting my approval for this proposal.
Any questions? No. All right, what's your pleasure on this matter then?
which options do we have? Can I request more information with respect to what's going on in other states? Have any other states denied this, or have they acquired information that would be helpful for us to make a more informed decision? I'm sitting in front of information that I reasonably pulled very quickly from the Better Business Bureau that says there's over 971 complaints related to GoDaddy specifically, and only a third of them have been resolved, and that's over a 3-year period. So I'm very concerned about this transaction moving forward here.
Commissioner, there is no counsel assigned as staff on this particular docket, but just speaking as commission counsel, first I would just respectfully remind the commission that decisions need to be made on information that is in the record before this commission, and would suggest that basically how this statute works is if the commission takes no action, then the approval is deemed to be effective. But certainly the commission can ask for a hearing, give notice to the parties of a hearing, and if that, it sounds like if more information is desired, then that's the route that we're going down. So if the commission directs that.
I personally need more information. So either it's going to be, if we take a vote on it today, first of all, I would move that we take action on it, because I would not submit my approval, and I don't think, therefore, it would.
We need 3 votes for approval today. So your vote has basic. I mean, so there won't be an approval, or it sounds like we're not taking no action.
I would ask, therefore, if there's an option to bring more information to the table to make a more informed decision on the quality of what we're allowing to enter the state by way of a takeover transaction. I think that I need more information before I can make an informed decision on this matter. So I don't know what form that takes, whether it's a hearing or whether it's staff brings us more information with respect.
Well, under 215D, the commission may make such investigation and hold such hearings in the matter as it deems necessary, and thereafter may grant any application under this section in whole or in part. So
shall I move?
That is the directive of the commission.
Before you take action, I believe Mr. Bonar had something he wanted to add.
Sorry.
That's exactly what I was.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, Commissioner, asked if there be a hearing. Call members of the company forward and ask questions of them. I think that's what we do in order to give you some comfort.
So are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
All right. I move that the commission request hearing in this matter and bring the appropriate parties to provide us evidence in order to make a more informed decision.
All right, any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to make public comment? There being none, I'll go to the director's comments, please.
Madam Acting Chair, good afternoon, Commissioners. We have had an opportunity, I don't know if you're familiar with the Advanced Energy Economy, which is I guess I kind of describe it as a DC think tank that talks about energy economy issues. They also have a spin-off on that organization called the Advanced Energy Economy Institute, which is an educational pursuit of new energy issues and things like that. We had an opportunity to send one of our staff members, Mr. Joe Delosa, to a meeting up there, and I believe it's the same meeting, Commissioner Gray, that you were invited to attend but had to unfortunately decline. So we wanted to make sure that we covered that meeting, and Mr. Delosa is here to give you a short briefing of what went on at that meeting and what wonderful ideas came out of the Advanced Energy Economy Institute.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Acting Chair and Commissioners. As Mr. Howlett referenced, my name is Joe DeLosa, and I'm just going to give you a real quick summary of what went on at the conference. Generally, the entire day was spent on distribution system improvement planning. Now, that kind of put me in a tough spot, as Delmarva at this point does not present
distribution system improvement plan. But at this point, what I'll do is bring some of the ideas from the conference for the commission's consideration and just kind of thoughts as we move forward. So, as with this commission, many other commissioners that attended the conference share the concern of affordability. And I would note that distribution system improvement plans, while some entities think of them as potentially pre-approval of cost recovery, much of the discussion at the conference talked about the opportunity to avoid these investments by way of a distribution system improvement plan or achieve the same outcome at a lower cost. These are kind of the opportunities that this kind of plan provides. And it also provides visibility, upfront visibility for the commission and staff to understand the investments that are going to be made in the future by the distribution utility. Planning is evolving. Historically, the core requirements of planning are to provide safe, reliable, and affordable service. However, as DERs and other emerging technologies come onto the grid, planning needs to evolve to keep up. For instance, in order to correctly plan a system with DER, the utility needs to account for how that DER fits into the distribution system and whether those elements can handle that DER. Now, last week, PHI and Exelon presented at the Solar Stakeholder Collaborative a couple overview documents of their planning process. And what we see is at the larger level, PHI is doing a lot of these things. At this point, they don't as yet come in and present it to us at the commission. Now, it was also a discussion at the conference that many of these concepts may require a reconsideration of the classic regulatory construct that's been in place for the better part of 100 years, where they build it and then come in for cost recovery. This setup generally discourages new innovative investment in anything that is or could be seen as too risky by the utility company, because if they go and make a risky investment that turns out faulty, then they're subject to the risk of having that investment disallowed by the commission in the rate case. And in order for the most efficient investments to be made and have the commission be able to see before the investment is made whether any other alternatives may be available and any potential cost savings that could be available to ratepayers, it's really something that a plan needs to address and be evaluated for before such time that the utility makes that investment. And I would subject that many other commissions also feel that they're not as involved in distribution planning as they would like to be. New Jersey is currently involved in providing parameters to their utilities for their distribution plan. Likewise in D.C., the Maryland Commission has also ordered distribution plans of one of their utilities as a result of a settlement in a rate case. Lastly, New York is kind of its own different animal. They are taking a lot of initiatives with respect to distribution system improvement planning, even taking up to 2% of the utility's operating budget and allowing them to do pilot programs and basically not requiring that recovery meet any particular prudent standard, but rather that the investments made in that small piece of the operating income come back with reports and lessons learned to the commission for the basis for future utility investments in maybe risky technologies and lessons learned. Now, that's not something that myself or staff would necessarily recommend at this point, just an idea that came out of New York, out of the conference. So essentially the takeaways are just kind of, number one, the importance of distribution system improvement planning and being able to evaluate planning through the lens of new and emerging technologies that we already see on the grid, and that commissioners are throughout the Mid-Atlantic are continuing to look for new places to discuss these issues and really be able to make headway moving forward, kind of not necessarily in lockstep, but as all the Mid-Atlantic states address these issues relatively at the same time, they're looking for a place to be able to continue to collaborate on these issues moving forward. Lastly, I'd just like to advise that I'm going to be sharing not only the entire PDF packet of the presentations with you after the meeting, but also a little write-up that was done by AEE talking about pretty much everything that went on at the conference. So at this point, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
No questions. I would just like to say thanks to our executive director and Mr. LaRosa for covering that, because the forums I've gone to, it seems that there's a lot of very good thinking going on, especially out of New York and in the Mid-Atlantic region. So I'm pleased that we're plugged into that. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mr. Dosa, thank you very, very much. I appreciate your opportunity to go to New York City and have a great time on us. I do have one late additional item to my director's comments. It was a toss-up as to whether you wanted to hear from me or you would rather hear from Ms. Heather Contant. I assumed that you would rather hear from Ms. Contant. So I've invited her to share a little something, a letter that we got from the Delaware Energy Users Group. Heather has been active in pulling us together in meetings and trying to keep staff and the various parties out there, especially from the Industrial Users Group, in touch with each other so we all kind of know what's going on. So, Heather, I'll defer to you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Madam Acting Chair and Commissioners. I'm going to just read briefly. It's a very brief letter, so I'll read it to you and then talk a little bit about it. So this came from the Delaware Energy Users Group, and on behalf of them and its members, they wanted to express their appreciation to the Public Service Commission for its efforts in opposition to the Artificial Island Transmission Project. In particular, the Commission's participation in proceedings before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission relating to the project has been critical. The current suspension of all elements of the project by PJM is a significant step in the right direction. As you know, however, PJM has undertaken a comprehensive analysis of the project, which is scheduled to be completed by February 2017. Please pass along our thanks to the Commissioners and to the members of the Commission staff who have been involved. Their continued attention to this matter will help to ensure that all of Delaware citizens and industries will not be burdened with excessive transmission costs that are allocated unfairly and that result in a steep and unnecessary increase in election rates. And then they, of course, offer their help. A similar letter was sent to Senator Harris McDowell and to Representative Trey Pardee, who co-chaired a legislative committee that became involved shortly after session ended. They had a resolution that created the commission, and they met up once or twice, and then they tried to jump in as a late intervener in the FERC process, but then things kind of got put on hold as PJM wanted to do this comprehensive analysis. So they sincerely appreciate our help and the legislature's help, and certainly offer any help they can give us in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We got the same letter.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Everyone got a letter.
Okay.
Everyone got
They're
a
a very grateful group.
Okay.
Everybody got a trophy.
Okay.
Participation prizes.
I apologize that I didn't have a copy of the listing of the 10,000 people that got that letter.
There's 2 CCs on it, so.
And the most interesting part of it is that the politicians got the great credit that they deserve.
Thank you, Heather.
On that, as soon as they got in, it stopped.
Unless someone told me.
Okay.
As my last official act here, we will have another commission meeting starting at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, October the 18th. I'm anxiously awaiting my stuffed Russian bear that I'm sure Chairman Winslow will be bringing back to everybody on the commission. So with that, I assume I will turn it back to you, Madam Acting Chair.
Thank you very much. There being no other business to come before this commission, the meeting is adjourned.
TK.
You're very welcome. All right, what do we need?